What if one simple cup each morning could help restore a man's vitality after 60? Would you take the chance? For many men, it sounds too good to be true, too easy, too natural, too hopeful. But then there's Robert. At 68, he sat across from me and quietly admitted, "I lost my manhood when I turned 60. He wasn't just talking about sex. He was talking about energy, confidence, strength, and the quiet pride of being fully present in his body. He'd accepted that this was how aging worked, until one small habit changed everything. Just one change, a daily cup of high-flavonol cacao. No drugs, no side effects, no complicated routines. Within weeks, Robert felt different. He moved better. He laughed more. His wife noticed. His doctor noticed. And perhaps most importantly, he noticed. You see, male vitality isn't about clinging to youth. It's about understanding what keeps the body running strong as time passes. Blood flow is at the center of it all, carrying oxygen, nutrients, hormones, and life force to every part of the body, especially the parts that define masculinity. And when circulation weakens, everything begins to fade: stamina, focus, desire, confidence. But nature has always offered tools for repair. The science of vascular health shows us that certain foods, rich in flavonoids, nitrates, and antioxidants, can restore blood vessel function and reignite what aging tries to dim. This isn't about chasing lost time. It's about claiming what's still possible. It's about waking up, not with regret, but with readiness. So if you've ever wondered what your life could feel like, just a little sharper, stronger, more connected, then keep listening. Because the question is just, will it work? Are you ready to try? Let's begin with the core issue behind it all. What exactly is happening to men's bodies after 60? And why is understanding that the first step to reversing it? Let's take a deeper look in the next section. What are men over 60 losing? As men enter their 60s, something subtle but profoundly significant starts happening beneath the surface. It's not just wrinkles or gray hair. It's biochemical, it's hormonal, it's vascular. And in many ways, it's silent until it affects one of the most deeply personal and emotionally charged aspects of male identity: sexual function. One of the primary drivers of this change is the natural decline in testosterone. Known as the male hormone, testosterone begins its gradual descent as early as the mid-30s, but by age 60, the cumulative loss becomes clinically relevant. According to research published in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism, up to 40% of men over 60 have levels considered below the normal range. And this isn't just about libido. Testosterone influences muscle mass, mood, bone density, fat metabolism, and yes, erectile function. When it drops, the consequences ripple across multiple systems. But testosterone is just one part of the equation. Equally critical, but far less talked about, is the role of nitric oxide and endothelial function. Nitric oxide is a gas your body produces naturally, and its main job in this context is to signal blood vessels to relax. When no levels are healthy, blood flow improves. In a younger man, the body produces nitric oxide efficiently, and the endothelial lining of blood vessels responds well, dilating smoothly to deliver blood where it's needed. In an aging man, however, chronic inflammation, oxidative stress, and years of poor diet or smoking gradually damage the endothelium, making it harder for nitric oxide to do its job. The result: restricted blood flow. And when we're talking about erectile tissue, blood flow is everything. The penis doesn't have a bone or muscle holding it up. An erection is purely a hydraulic event. The heart pumps blood, and the penile chambers fill and expand. But without proper nitric oxide signaling and healthy endothelial tissue, that system begins to falter. The engine is still running, but the pipes are clogged and the signal to open the valves is weak. This leads us into the physiology of erectile dysfunction in aging men. It's not simply a failure of desire. Many men still feel attraction and intimacy, but find that their bodies don't respond the way it used to. Part of the issue is decreased arterial elasticity, as blood vessels stiffen with age. Part of it is reduced nerve sensitivity, and part of it is psychological. Performance anxiety often grows after 1 or 2 bad experiences. These combine into a frustrating, sometimes embarrassing cycle that can chip away at a man's self-esteem. Naturally, many turn to medications like Viagra, sildenafil. And for good reason. Viagra has helped millions regain confidence and sexual function. It works by enhancing the nitric oxide pathway, inhibiting the enzyme PDE5 that would otherwise shut down the erection process. When it works well, but it doesn't address the root of the problem. It doesn't rebuild damaged endothelium, nor does it increase nitric oxide production at the source. It's also not a fit for every man. Those with heart conditions or who take nitrates for angina are often advised to avoid it due to dangerous blood pressure interactions. Others experience side effects like headaches, flushing, nasal congestion, or vision changes. In contrast, natural approaches focus on rebuilding the vascular foundation, restoring nitric oxide levels through diet, exercise, and key nutrients. This route is slower but deeper. Instead of forcing a result, it nurtures the body's ability to perform on its own. For aging men who want long-term vitality, this often proves to be the more sustainable path. And that brings us to an ancient but scientifically backed solution. A bitter, dark, and surprisingly powerful drink once revered by emperors and now rediscovered in the modern age. It's time we take a closer look at what some are calling liquid black gold, not just for its rich flavor, but for its remarkable ability to revive what aging slowly takes away. Centuries before modern medicine began exploring the connection between diet and vascular health, ancient civilizations already knew the power of a single, dark drink. The Aztec Emperor Montezuma II was said to consume dozens of cups of a bitter cocoa-based beverage daily, not sweet, not creamy, but infused with chili and spices. This wasn't a luxury treat. It was his fuel for energy, focus, and virility. Considered the drink of the gods, this early version of what we now call cacao was so revered that it was reserved for nobility, warriors, and spiritual ceremonies. Fast forward to the 20th century, and a remarkably similar pattern emerged thousands of miles away in the Caribbean. Researchers studying the Cuna people of Panama were baffled. Despite consuming a diet high in salt, these islanders had astoundingly low rates of hypertension, stroke, and cardiovascular disease. What was their secret? It wasn't genetics. It was their daily consumption of 5 cups of raw, high-flavonol cacao, brewed like tea and consumed religiously. This brings us to the star of the story, cacao flavonols. These are naturally occurring plant compounds, a subclass of flavonoids, responsible for cacao's bitter taste and its wide-ranging health benefits. In particular, epicatechin and procyanidins have been shown to improve endothelial function, the health of the inner lining of blood vessels, by increasing nitric oxide production and reducing oxidative stress. In plain terms, flavonols make your blood vessels more elastic, improve blood flow, lower inflammation, and enhance the body's ability to heal itself. These benefits aren't folklore. They've been validated by some of the most respected institutions in the world. A study from Harvard Medical School, published in Hypertension, followed the Cuna people and concluded that their high cocoa intake was directly linked to their exceptional cardiovascular health. Another clinical trial published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that flavonol-rich cocoa improved blood pressure, insulin sensitivity, and arterial function, even in participants with chronic health issues. But not all chocolate is created equal. The kind of cacao Montezuma drank, or the Cuna brewed, is a far cry from what lines the shelves of modern grocery stores. Most commercial chocolate is heavily processed, alkalized to reduce bitterness, roasted at high temperatures, and loaded with refined sugar, milk solids, and preservatives. This process destroys the vast majority of its flavonols. For example, dark chocolate from major brands may contain less than 10% of the active compounds found in raw, minimally processed cacao powder. What's worse, popular chocolate bars often contain ingredients that actively harm cardiovascular health, like high-fructose corn syrup, palm oil, and emulsifiers. So grabbing a candy bar and calling it heart medicine simply doesn't work. If you're serious about reaping the benefits, you need unprocessed, high-flavonol cacao, ideally organic and cold-pressed to preserve its natural compounds. The contrast is striking. One version heals, the other harms. And that's what makes liquid black gold so special. It's not just a nostalgic nod to history or a wellness trend. It's a scientifically supported, accessible solution for men seeking to restore vitality without pills or gimmicks. Brewed properly, this dark elixir can become a daily ritual that fuels your heart, your mind, and yes, your manhood. Now, let's step away from theory and look at the lives of real men who have embraced this ancient wisdom, men who traded prescriptions for persistence, and in doing so, rediscovered the strength they thought was lost. Sometimes the most convincing arguments aren't found in studies or lab reports, they're found in people. Real men with real struggles who quietly suffer as age begins to rob them of energy, confidence, and connection. But just as powerfully, these same men can reclaim what was lost, often with something as deceptively simple as a shift in daily routine. Let me share the journey of 3 such individuals, each different in background, but united by one thing: the will to feel alive again. Michael was 65 when he came to me. Just a few months earlier, he had suffered a minor stroke, what doctors politely call a warning shot. It wasn't catastrophic, but it was enough to scare him. He noticed afterward that everything slowed down. His thoughts felt foggier. His balance was shakier. His energy, especially in the mornings, had plummeted. He also confessed, somewhat hesitantly, that he no longer felt interested in his wife the way he used to. It wasn't a matter of love, it was biology. His doctor had prescribed medications for blood pressure and statins for cholesterol, but Michael wanted more than management. He wanted recovery. We started him on a simple regimen. Every morning, a warm cup of high-flavonol cacao with a teaspoon of raw honey and a dash of cayenne. No sugar, no cream, just pure, therapeutic liquid black gold. After week 1, he reported feeling more alert before noon. By week 3, his morning walks extended from 10 minutes to 30 without fatigue. At week 6, he told me, with a smile that needed no explanation, that he and his wife had been more connected lately. By week 12, his resting blood pressure had dropped by 10 points, and his cardiologist agreed to reduce his medication. "I don't feel like an old man anymore," he said. "I feel like someone who has time left and the strength to use it." Then there was David, 70, a retired accountant battling type 2 diabetes for over a decade. What hurt him more than the needles and metformin wasn't physical, it was emotional. "I don't feel like a man anymore," he said softly during our first visit. He hadn't had a spontaneous erection in nearly 2 years. Sex with his wife had become a distant memory, and with it, his confidence had quietly disappeared. Unlike Michael, David was skeptical. "A cup of bitter cocoa, it's not going to fix this," he insisted. Still, he agreed to try, if only to humor his daughter, who had found my clinic. We adjusted his approach slightly. He took the cocoa in the evening, just after dinner, and added cinnamon to help regulate blood sugar. Within 2 weeks, his fasting glucose levels had improved slightly, but what surprised him more was his energy. He began sleeping better. He started cooking again, something he hadn't done since his retirement. At week 8, he shared something remarkable. One morning, for the first time in over a year, he woke up with morning wood. "It shocked me," he laughed. "I thought it was a fluke, but it was." Over the next 4 weeks, his sexual desire returned gradually, matched by the emotional courage to talk openly with his wife. They weren't just intimate again, they were emotionally reconnected. "I got more than I expected," David told me. "I got my relationship back." Finally, we have Henry, 62 years old, lean, sharp-witted, but worn out. He had smoked for over 30 years before quitting cold turkey at 58. The damage, though, was already done. Shortness of breath, poor circulation, and worse, a frustrating case of erectile dysfunction that had resisted both counseling and medication. "I feel like my body gave up on me," he admitted. Unlike the others, Henry didn't care about sweetness or flavor. He wanted results, so I gave him a slightly stronger dose. 2 servings of cacao per day, morning and evening, with a pinch of turmeric and black pepper to support his inflammation and vascular repair. By the end of week 4, he said something unexpected: "I feel warmer." That's often a sign of improved blood flow. By week 6, his hands and feet were no longer cold at night. He was less irritable, more energetic. And by week 10, he said this: "I'm not afraid to be touched anymore." His wife had noticed, too. Henry wasn't just functioning again, he was thriving. The spark in his eyes was back. The man who walked into my office skeptical and tired now carried himself with the confident posture of someone 10 years younger. What connects these 3 men isn't just a drink, it's hope. They chose to believe in their body's ability to regenerate, to strengthen, to feel again. The cacao was the catalyst, yes. But their real transformation came from consistency, intention, and the quiet courage to try again. If their journeys have shown us anything, it's this: you don't need youth to feel powerful. You need circulation, commitment, and the right nourishment. And the best part, you can begin this transformation from your own kitchen. So let's break it down. How exactly do you prepare this liquid black gold? And what's the science-backed plan to make it part of your everyday life? Let me guide you. Choosing the right cacao isn't about grabbing the first organic label you see on a supermarket shelf. It requires understanding what gives cacao its therapeutic edge, namely flavonols. These powerful plant compounds are responsible for most of the cardiovascular and nitric oxide benefits we've discussed. The higher the flavonol content, the more potent the effects. One way to assess this is by checking the ORAC value, oxygen radical absorbance capacity, a measure of antioxidant potential. Look for raw, non-alkalized cacao with high ORAC ratings, typically above 50,000 mmol TE 100G. Steer clear of cocoa powders labeled Dutch processed or alkalized, as these have gone through a chemical process that strips away much of their beneficial compounds. Avoid products with additives like sugar, milk solids, or artificial flavors. These dilute the effect and, in some cases, directly counteract the vascular benefits. Once you've sourced a high-quality cacao powder, preparation becomes a mindful ritual. Start with 1 rounded teaspoon, about 5 grams of cacao in a mug. Add about 6-8 ounces of hot, but not boiling, filtered water around 160-170 degrees F or 70-75 degrees C. Stir gently until dissolved. At this point, you can enhance the drink with 1 teaspoon of raw, unpasteurized honey, not only for sweetness, but also for its trace minerals, zinc, and anti-inflammatory properties. A small pinch of cayenne pepper can be added to improve circulation further. If you're dealing with blood sugar sensitivity, a dash of cinnamon can help stabilize glucose levels. Drink this once daily, preferably in the morning on an empty stomach or mid-afternoon between meals when absorption is optimal. However, personal health conditions matter. For those with high blood pressure, the natural vasodilating effect of cacao is typically beneficial, but it's wise to monitor blood pressure for the first few weeks. Diabetics should choose unsweetened versions and consider omitting honey. For those with acid reflux or sensitive stomachs, start with half a dose and avoid drinking on an empty stomach to minimize discomfort. Always listen to your body. Some people feel energized, others feel calm. Adjust timing accordingly. To further enhance nitric oxide production, consider combining cacao with other nitrate-rich foods. In the morning, a glass of fresh beet juice or a handful of berries, like blueberries, blackberries, or strawberries, can complement the effects of the cacao. In warmer seasons, watermelon is an excellent addition, rich in L-citrulline, a precursor to nitric oxide. Even leafy greens like arugula and spinach can play a role when included in daily meals. Now let's talk about consistency. A single cup won't change your life, but 28 days might. Begin with a 4-week plan. In week 1, journal your energy levels, sleep quality, and any changes in mental clarity. In week 2, track blood pressure if possible, and note physical stamina. Are your walks longer, your joints looser? By week 3, you might observe improved morning arousal or greater emotional resilience. And by week 4, look for trends. Has your mood improved? Do you feel stronger, lighter, more in tune with your body? This isn't just about sexual health, it's about reclaiming physical vitality as a whole. Write it down. Let the transformation become visible, not just in the mirror, but in the rhythm of your days. Because the truth is, this isn't just a beverage, it's a practice. A signal to your body each morning, I'm choosing vitality today. And as we've seen time and time again, it's not youth that defines a man's power. It's circulation, nourishment, and how he chooses to care for the body that carries his legacy. Which brings us to something even deeper. A philosophy of aging that's been forgotten, but is more urgent now than ever. Let's explore what it truly means to be a man after 60, not one who is losing strength, but one who is finally learning how to use it wisely. When we talk about male vitality, the conversation almost always gets reduced to one narrow measure: sexual performance. But true vitality, real, lasting masculinity, is so much more than that. It's not just about what happens in the bedroom. It's about how a man carries himself, how he thinks, how he loves, how he leads, and how deeply he connects to life. Sexual function is one piece of a larger puzzle, what we might call a man's life force. That force includes his energy, his mood, his drive to wake up and move, his ability to stand tall in the face of challenges, and his emotional intimacy with those he loves. These elements are often the first to fade with age, not because of age itself, but because of the neglect that comes with it. Society hasn't made this any easier. Men over 60 are often trapped in silence when it comes to sensitive health issues. Cultural expectations tell them to tough it out, don't complain, and handle it like a man. Vulnerability is seen as weakness. As a result, many aging men suffer quietly, ashamed to bring up issues like fatigue, loss of libido, or emotional disconnect even with their doctors. The result is a generation of men who are disconnected not only from others but from themselves. They think what they're going through is just part of getting old, but it's not. It's a signal. A signal that something needs care, attention, and healing. Here's the truth. Relying on a little blue pill or waiting for someone else to fix you is not empowerment. True healing begins with understanding, and it's driven by choice. When you know how your body works, when you understand what nitric oxide is, how blood vessels respond, how food and movement influence hormones, you're no longer a passive patient. You're an active participant in your health. That's when change becomes possible, not through a miracle drug, but through daily decisions, through showing up for yourself, even when it feels slow, through asking for help, not because you're weak, but because you value strength. And strength for a man in his 60s looks different than it did at 30. It's no longer about conquering the world. It's about reclaiming the one inside of you, a world of stillness, clarity, and resilience. The ability to walk without pain, sleep through the night, enjoy a meal that fuels instead of depletes, and the confidence to reach for your partner's hand without hesitation. The focus is to build, to learn, to grow, because you're not done yet. This stage of life may be your most powerful one if you approach it with intention. So let's stop thinking of aging as a slow surrender and instead treat it like a new discipline, one that requires care, curiosity, and courage. No more shrinking back, no more settling for "this is just how it is now." You're not losing your masculinity, you're learning to master it. And that brings us to the final truth: transformation doesn't come from one choice. It comes from choosing again and again, day after day. Let's close by looking at how persistence, not perfection, is what fuels real change. Because in the end, it's not the strongest man who thrives, it's the one who refuses to give up. In the end, what we've uncovered is simple but profound. Pure, high-flavonol cacao isn't just a health trend, it's a tool for transformation. With consistent use, this ancient drink has been shown to support nitric oxide production, lower blood pressure, improve circulation, reduce inflammation, and restore energy and vitality, especially in men over 60. It works not by masking symptoms, but by helping your body heal and function the way it was designed to. This isn't magic, it's biology, and most importantly, it's within your control. To every man reading or listening, if you've ever felt like age has taken something from you, I invite you to take something back. Try this simple ritual for 4 weeks. Brew your cacao, take it with presence, and let your body do what it's been waiting to do: restore. Then come back and share your journey, share your energy levels, share your confidence, share what's changed, not just physically, but emotionally. When men speak openly, others feel less alone. You never know who you'll inspire. And ask yourself this: if you've ever believed you were no longer a complete man, what's stopping you from trying again? Because sometimes just one choice, 1 cup each morning, can change not only your health, but the way your partner looks at you, the way you look at yourself. The lesson is clear. Lasting strength doesn't come from shortcuts or quick fixes. It comes from daily commitment, from showing up, from believing that healing is possible, not just in theory, but in your own life. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be consistent, and that's where real power lives.